Last but not least, we have the percussion section. I'm going to go into kits and actually load the full orchestral percussion kit. The percussion of the Symphony series is definitely the simplest, and I love the layout with this. It shows you exactly which instrument is playing, and it even gives you an oscilloscope. So let's go through the different keys. Start with the bass drum at the very bottom. See this fantastic oscilloscope that turns up here. And we go through all the different instruments that are available. So we have toms, rototoms, snares, field drum, cymbals, tam-tam, fantastic sounding gong, piatti, chimes, tambourines, shakers, and so on. The higher you get up the spectrum, generally speaking, the more high frequencies those pieces of percussion provide. You do have a set of parameters per piece of percussion, which include volume, pan, and tune. Obviously, when you get into the individual kits, you have a little more control, but it's more specific to a group of sounds. So the parameters that we see here are volume, from very quiet to very loud, panning, which dictates if the sound is on the left or right of the stereo signal, and then tuning. We can tune up or down by a full octave. We have attack. Now, attack is really interesting because you wouldn't really get attack like this in a natural way. So this is a really synthetic attack, but again, aiding your sound design. You can really add a lot of tension with that. Again, release is really the release of the room. It's the recording of the reverb being cut down. Imagine it either being recorded in a large concert hall or something like a drum room. The shorter the release, the tighter it's going to be, the less the reflections. It could also sound slightly more natural. You do have tuning across the whole kit, so quite interesting there. And then you also have how much the velocity actually affects the volume. The more you increase this to the right, the more the velocity will affect the volume, whereas if you decrease it to the left, then everything stays quite similar. Check it out. So that's in the middle, over here. And all the way to the left. So even with me hitting it really hard, it's almost as if there is some sort of compression going on. In the mixer section, you'll be familiar with all these parameters. We've got the different microphone mixers, stereo, close, mid, far, and a new one called spot. Let's go straight over to that one. Now, what spot is doing is playing back a microphone which is directly on the instrument, which is not going to be taking up any of the room. Check it out. It's really as close as you can get. On that snare, you can hear some of the reflections, but they are so in the distance, the microphone is barely picking them up. As for the other sections, EQ, reverb, compression and filter, these will all be very familiar to you as you would have seen them in the other videos. You can use these different sections to help transform your sound into something more interesting. So let's say, for example, I wanted just to use this snare from this kit. I'm going to EQ it so I have more low frequencies, making it feel a bit deeper. Let's bring back that stereo mic and pull the volume down a little bit first. Great. Let's increase the gain. Make sure we're boosting the lows around 200. A little bit too much. Let's pull that back. That's nice. And let's also bring in some of the highs. So without, and with, a lot fuller, a lot more in your face. Obviously, this is going to affect the whole kit, but I'm just focusing on the snare for now. Let's say you just chose to load the snares, the snare kit here, for example. Let's add some reverb. Now I want to go for, let's go for underground. Looks like a train station, bunker A. Very fun. Let's do drain A, why not? Very artificial sounding. This will be a drain, as in a plastic rubber drain that sometimes you see people playing in the street, but in this case they've used it as a reverb. Compression and filter. Now with a filter, I'm just going to pull down some of the high frequencies. And let's do a slow attack, fast release. Let's pull that threshold down. Get a really compressed signal here. We've changed the sound entirely, and I'm really exaggerating everything here because I want to stress how important the mixer section is in each of the individual instruments. Don't always take them as they are. Use these to your advantage to help you develop more unique sound. Now, you may want something very natural and lush sounding, and the Symphony series is obviously fantastic for that. But there's nothing wrong with layering with slightly less natural sounding pieces of percussion set or instruments that will help exacerbate certain frequency areas or certain emotions that your track or composition is trying to provide you with. Let's see how the rest of the kit sounds with these rather extreme settings. Very strange, very weird, feels a little more alien. Maybe that would be the perfect setup for a composition that you wanted to use classical instruments in, but there was something maybe out of this earth coming to you. In the upcoming videos, we are going to take a look at how to use all these instruments together to create a fairly basic but effective composition.